Hi, QA in London Meetup Group members. Thank you for joining us for today's session, Cypress versus Selenium, Better or Just Different, with Senior Architect Gil Tayar. So this is where I usually intro our speaker, but if I'll talk about all the amazing things that Gil has accomplished in his career, it will take up the entire hour and more. So I'll just give the highlights. So Gil is a senior architect and evangelist at Applitools. He has over 30 years of experience with software development. In the past, he has co-founded Web College and worked on various big projects at Wix. His current passion is figuring out how to test software, a passion which he has turned into his main job as evangelist and senior architect at Applitools. In addition, Gil is a sought-after public speaker and he frequently talks at notable international conferences about test automation and software development. And to top it all off, Gil is also a faculty member at Test Automation University, and his course Introduction to Cypress is available online. So if you go to testautomationu.com, it's there. Be sure to check that out. So without any further ado, Gil, take it away.
Woo, hello. Hi, London. Today I'm an international speaker, so today I'm in London. Next week I'm in Verona, Italy. Wow, hooray for international speakers. Anyway, Cypress versus Selenium, the date there is wrong, September 2020, but obviously everything else is right because it's written Corona times. And as far as I remember, September 2019 wasn't Corona time. Anyway. Okay, you've heard about me. I'm gonna skip that. Introduction. Okay, let's talk about what we're gonna talk about. I usually don't do that, but in this case, a lot of people expect a fight between Cypress and Selenium WebDriver. That's not what's gonna happen. I mean, I'm gonna talk about Cypress. I'm gonna talk about Selenium WebDriver. I'm not gonna talk about which is better. I mean, yeah, who wins? Everybody wants to know who wins. There is no winner here. We'll see that they're coming from two different mindsets, and understanding those mindsets is understanding how Cypress works and how Selenium WebDriver works, and understanding all of that will help you decide whether you want to go the Selenium WebDriver way or the Cypress way, or maybe an amalgamation of both of them. Who knows? So, first of all, what are Cypress and Selenium WebDriver? I'm pretty sure you know they're browser automation tools. They automate browsers. This is an example, Cypress, let me minimize that, yeah. This is an example, Cypress script, sci.visit. This is gonna be our app for testing, our app under test today. It's the to-do MVC. It's a very, very simple to-do app. I usually do that. It's complex enough to do some testing on it, but not too complex that you wouldn't understand. Then I get the element there, the new to do, and type in clean room and press enter so that a new to do will be created. And then I toggle the click so that I click the toggle. I don't toggle the click. I click the toggle so that the new to do will be done, and check that. And click the clear completed to complete everything, blah, blah, blah. So this is an example script. The same script in Selenium WebDriver, a bit more complex, especially in JavaScript. This is JavaScript code. That's why it's full of awaits, because in JavaScript, everything async needs to have awaits. So I drew driver.get to get to the page, find the element, send it keys, etc., etc., etc. We won't get into the whole thing. First of all, and this sounds like, why would the hell is this important? But bear with me. Who needs browser automation tools? First of all, and I'll start with something that isn't as common. Developers need browser automation tools. Developers have what is called when they test, and yes, I know they don't test frequently, but a lot of developers do test, and I test a lot, all of my code. So, and it's getting more and more common. Every conference I go to, I ask people, how many developers test? How many of you developers test? And in the beginning, it was like a few, like 5%, 10%. Now it's more than 50%. So they have the pyramid of testing, just like any tester. And in the pyramid of testing, the higher you go up, the more confidence you get. I mean, an end-to-end test, if it passes, it gives you more confidence that the product works than a unit test. That makes sense. But unfortunately, the more higher we go up, the slower things become in terms of how long the test runs, and the flakier it becomes. You start getting errors where there shouldn't be any. Unit tests, when they pass, they pass. When they don't pass, they don't pass, like in 99.9%. End-to-end, we all know it's a bit statistical. So that's the pyramid of testing. And developers, not very enamored with end-to-end tests. They prefer unit integration. And why is that? Why is that? Because they want to commit and they want to push their change to the master, to Git master, and they want to test that everything works. If they had this whole suite of end-to-end tests, then it would take like 10, 20, 15 minutes. They don't want to wait that. So they want these unit integration tests that run fast. Unfortunately, unit and integration tests are not enough. Developers must also test the product in whole. That does not mean that they like it. And let's talk about which developers mostly deal with browsers, because we're talking about browser tests. And the answer is, well, front-end developers, obviously. And let's talk about front-end developers. Who are they? Well, they're front-end developers. What do they want? They want browser automation tools to do their end-to-end tests. And in what language? Well, the only language that they speak. The front-end developers speak one language. I mean, testers speak Java, Python, Ruby, C#, JavaScript too. Front-end developers speak only JavaScript. Who else needs browser automation tools? Test automation engineers, obviously. I mean, they were the first customers of browser automation tools. But why can't they do unit and integration? I mean, why are they only doing integration tests? Why are you all doing only integration tests? And the answer is, I hate that answer because I think it's wrong. Developers, the not very good developers, they have this throw over the wall mentality. Like they code and 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 they code, and then when they test it manually, like a little bit, and then when they're ready and when the product, they think they're done coding, they throw it over to QA, to automation testers or to testers in general, and yeah, hey, go check if I did any bugs. That's a very bad mentality. I have a whole talk about that. We're not going to get into that, but that means that QA engineers have access only to the final product. They can't go in and delve into the specific modules or packages or classes or whatever and do unit and integration tests on them. Why is all this important? And the answer is because the test automation engineer and the software engineer have different mindsets when it comes to testing. Totally different mindsets. Developers like fast. They want to test everything on each commit. Okay. Testers are okay with long suites of tests, not because they're okay with it, but because they basically have no choice. Why don't they have the choice? Because the developers have access to the code, so they can write unit integration tests that are fast. But testers don't have access to the code, so they can only run end-to-end tests. Obviously, there are always exceptions. The developers thus can test the application from the inside, and the testers can only test the application from the outside, which is why developers prefer unit integration tests and testers do mostly end-to-end. Developers like only JavaScript. They only understand JavaScript. And if you're saying, no, what about TypeScript? TypeScript and JavaScript, for me, it's the same. And testers, they love many languages. They don't come from one language like front-end developers. And the most interesting one is testers, they do cross-browser testing. They test it in, well, IE11 if they're unlucky, but Chrome, Firefox, Safari, iOS, Android, etc. And developers, the answer when they're running the test, what, there are other browsers other than Chrome? Oh, really? I didn't know that. So yeah, that's developers. Let's talk a bit about that. So we understand the different mindsets. And now when we come to how, we're going to talk about how Selenium works and how Cypress works. And when we start talking about that, you'll see the different mindsets come into focus. So first, let's talk about Selenium. Selenium was started by Jason Huggins. I hope that's how it's called, how he's called. On 2004, we're talking 16 years at ThoughtWorks. He wrote Selenium RC, I think it's remote control, basically a dead product. But that started the whole Selenium suite. Simon Stewart, 2007, writes what is now being used till this day, Selenium WebDriver. And the interesting thing is, why is it called Selenium? Because well, there was an Israeli company called, it was Israeli, which is interesting, called Mercury, and it was one of the first automation tools. They automated Windows applications. It was back in the days when Windows was important, and they also automated browsers. And the idea was, hey, Mercury did a really bad job, and Selenium is the cure for mercury poisoning, and that's true. When you have mercury poisoning, you take Selenium supplements. And Simon, Jason, and others, today it's a whole community, built a suite of tools, Selenium WebDriver, Selenium Grid, Selenium IDE, etc., etc., etc. Most important thing to understand about Selenium is that it is cross-language and cross-browser. Remember the tester mindset. The tester mindset is we need to test across all browsers, and the Selenium mindset, the tester mindset is we know a lot of languages. So when Selenium was written, it was written in the tester mindset. So they needed to be cross-browser and cross-operating system, and they needed to support multiple languages. And these two things, cross-language and cross-browser, reflect on the product as a whole. How? Well, look at the architecture. We have a test using WebDriver, okay? How does Selenium work? If you have a test using WebDriver and you say like driver.get or driver.findElement, that basically does an HTTP call to what is called the browser driver, Chrome driver, Gecko driver, IE driver, etc., etc. The Selenium protocol is browser cross-browser. Okay, it doesn't matter which browser, but the browser driver is specific to the browser under test, and it knows how to speak with the browser in its own specific protocol and does everything that the Selenium test asks. So we have two hops. The test is running in one process, the browser driver is running in another process, and the browser is running in another browser. Every time you do an API call, at least one hop goes back and forth. I'll skip the Selenium test. I'm absolutely sure that most of you have seen Selenium, so I'll skip it in favor of showing more Cypress. But I do want to show code, and we've seen it. There we go. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, and here. What is all this await thing? Okay, in the code. What is all that? And the answer is async await is a pretty modern way of writing IO code in JavaScript. Back in the days, IO code in JavaScript had to use callbacks because in JavaScript, everything IO is asynchronous, and asynchronicity used callbacks. But now we have async await, and await means wait for this IO stuff to be done. And why do we need async await? Again, remember, every call to driver.get, driver.findElement, driver.whatever is basically an HTTP call to the browser driver. HTTP is IO, IO is asynchronous, so we need await. So what do we get? We get huge browser support. Selenium has the best browser support ever, okay? Cross-language, because remember, with the Selenium protocol, if you want to write a new binding, like for a new language, a Haskell binding or whatever, you only need to do the API and send the protocol and send the Selenium HTTP protocol call to the browser driver. It's not a lot of work to do that. You don't need to write everything in that language. language. So cross-language is very important and supported in the architecture. And test runner, you want to use Mocha, you want to use Jest, you want to use JUnit, you want to use just whatever you want. We don't interfere with which test runner you want. You can even run without a test runner if you want. The cons is because it's asynchronous and there are a lot of hops, it's slower, okay? And because it's slower, flakiness tends to creep in, and there's another reason why it's flaky. We'll talk about that in a second. And the reason for all this is that the target audience is testers, okay? So for example, we have Selenium Grid for running stuff in parallel, and cross-browser is important. What about flakiness? Okay, let's see a Selenium test, and we'll understand flakiness. Let's say instead of going and doing this, let's open that. You know what? Let's open the to-do MVC app. Why isn't it opening? Okay, never mind. Yeah. Why isn't the browser opening? There we go. So clean room, this is the to-do MVC app, and then I toggle, and then I clear completed. This is basically the test. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this, but as you notice, the new to-do element here appeared immediately. So when I do driver.findElement, it will be there. But what happens if the application is a bit slow? And this application has this query parameter where I can delay the new to-do by however. So let's delay it by a second. Let's show it. Oops, let's show it here. Open, look, 1 second, and boom, it appeared. Now let's run the test. npm, I think it's run test.selenium.
Gil, we can't hear you, I think, or at least I can't hear you. I don't know if it's going around.
Test it, hopefully.
Gil, Gil, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We missed like the last minute, of what you were saying before you started running the test. So if you could back it up a little bit, it would be great.
Sure. Before I ran the test the first time?
Yeah. We lost like a minute or two. Thank you.
Sure. Not a problem. So, yeah, I noticed this. There was a blimp. Okay. We have the to-do MVC app, and it delays the new to-do. And if I remove this line, then and run the test, then because the new to-do input doesn't appear, then the test fails. There we go. Here we go. The test fails because the driver.findElement isn't finding the element because we're delaying the new to-do element for appearing for 1 second. But Selenium has an answer to that, which is driver.wait until element located. It does all these until things, until this, until that. And now if we run the test passes, hopefully. There we go. And the test passed. Okay, so this is how Selenium deals with flakiness. Okay. Still there, right, Adi?
It's perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect. You're perfect.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, so that's flakiness, and we'll see later. Why am I showing this? We'll see later how Cypress deals with it. Cypress is pretty new, 2015, started by Brian Mann and Randall Kent, and we'll see Brian Mann in a second, not see him, but the things he wrote. Oh, no, that's another talk, sorry, oops. And it's more than just a browser automation tool. It's basically, and that is how they position it. It is a tool for front-end developer end-to-end testing. It is in some ways the exact opposite of Selenium, and we'll see why. And it's commercial because Cypress is a commercial company, but you can use it open source, freemium, no problem. You don't have to pay. You can think about, and if you want additional things like a grid, then you have to pay Cypress, but you can think about it as open source with commercial editions. It's your choice. Anyway, Selenium is cross-browser. Cypress is only Chrome, and we'll talk about all these. Let's skip that. And the target audience for Cypress, by definition, and they say that the founders and everybody in there is developers. That does not mean that testers don't use it. Testers use it a lot. Okay, I'm not saying a lot of testers love it, but the target is developers, front-end developers. Let's do that. Let's see a Cypress test. First of all, the test itself. There we go. It's the same test. I visit the To-Do MVC app, I type clean room, and I check this, check that, etc., etc. Now let's run it. Cypress open. And first of all, we'll see something interesting. Ooh, a window opens, and it has the list of tests, not the application under test. And I can, by the way, this is new. I have Firefox support and Chrome support. Okay, to do actions, I run it. I run the test. Notice, look at the left side. Just a second, there we go. And the left side, it shows the tests being run. And on the right side, we see the application, and there we go, the test passed. This is what is called a Cypress interactive mode. Okay, where's that? There we go. And interactive mode is really great. Developers don't want to spend time on end-to-end. They don't do it a lot. Remember, most of their time is coding. So they need help building the test, and interactive mode enables you to do things like this. Check what the selector is and get the command and copy to the clipboard so you can copy to the test. Another thing interactive mode allows us is, look at that. It shows all the commands that happened during the test. The visit, the get, if there was an assert, if there was a check, then it showed what the assert was, etc. Not only that, if there was a get, it shows you in the application under test what that selector selected. So if there was a bug and it selected something else, you'd see it immediately. And the amazing thing about it, notice the time travel. Okay, whenever I hover over something, I can see the HTML as it was when the command was done. And that is mind-bogglingly amazing for troubleshooting a test, because you can see exactly what happened on every step. Very, very useful. This looks like, oh yeah, nice for demos, but no, this is amazingly useful. Okay. So interactive mode is really the bomb. We've seen element locator, we've seen DOM history and IntelliSense. Okay. Again, developer experience is very important for Cypress people. And remember, we're talking JavaScript. And in JavaScript, seeing this kind of documentation on an application and saying and doing a command space and seeing all the options, that is basically amazing. You get it for free in Cypress if you use IntelliJ or Visual Studio Code. Obviously, you get all the command completion that you want, which you will not get if you use Selenium or anything. The documentation. Again, developers love good documentation, and this is very apparent in here. Okay, let's go to whatever, click, API, commands, click, maybe the most important command of them all. As you can see, the documentation is very extensive, okay? And it's really, really good. One of the reasons why it's really, really good, well, the main reason is because for Cypress it's very important to have good documentation, just like it's important to have documented good intelligence, basically good developer experience. But another reason is that if you have a problem with the documentation, you want to add something, it is open source. You just change the markdown, do a pull request, and they mostly accept it, and boom, your change is in the documentation. So basically, Cypress documentation is a labor of all the community. So you got it. Developer UX is fabulous. What about flakiness? Okay, let's talk about solving the flakiness problem. Again, let's delay it not by 1 second, but by 2 seconds. Okay, I hate that thing. Let's see the running. There we go. It's run. It automatically runs whenever I save. Okay, I don't know why that happened, but as you can see, the new to-do did get there, even though it was delayed by 2 seconds. How come? How does Cypress know? I mean, we did a visit. The new to-do wasn't there because it was delayed for 2 seconds, and yet the site.get happened and worked. How does that work? And the answer is Cypress has built-in anti-flakiness. Okay, so how does it work? Easily. When it does a site.get new to do and it's not there, it will repeat that site.get for 4 seconds, and that 4 seconds is configurable per command or for all the tests. 4 seconds sounds good to me. So it's configurable for 4 seconds. So it waited for 4 seconds, and after 2 seconds it appeared, and boom, everything worked. Even the should have text clean room is also repeated. So if the condition doesn't work, it will continue repeating it until it does. So this is like built into Cypress without you having to deal with anything. And the reason it can do that is because it's not asynchronous. The reason it can do that is it can check or click or check whether a selector exists or check whether the condition exists very, very quickly, whereas Selenium needs to like go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Gil?
Until it does everything. Okay. Yes.
Gil, I think that again we had.
Did I lose you again?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you lost me or I lost you, but yeah, I think so again. If you can take it from the top, from when you changed to this last topic.
Okay.
So yeah, so slide number 58.
Okay, did you see
that would be great.
58. Okay, 50. Oh, this is great. Okay, so Cypress tests run in the browser, and that is very, very important. And the reason, the reason that Cypress can do the flakiness, the anti-flakiness thing, is because the Cypress tests run in the browser, so it has access to the DOM directly. And this is weird. I mean, when you run a Selenium test, it runs in Java and throws commands at the browser. When a Cypress test runs, it runs in an iframe in the browser, and when you do a site.get.click to click on something, it's just a DOM call, so it's like nanoseconds in speed. It's amazingly fast. So we get synchronous and very fast access to the page. And when dealing with flakiness, these things are very, very important. Part of dealing with flakiness is doing the repeats. But part of dealing with flakiness is just letting the app do its work and not, waiting for so long to do stuff. And as we said, Cypress waits until the element appears and assertions it's true. But that's weird. But if it's waiting is an asynchronous thing. How come there's no async await? Does it busy wait? Like wait in a very, very fast loop? Definitely not. It does a weird thing to do the waiting. What it does is it does when you run a test, it's actually, this is a bit advanced, but it's important to understand. When you run a test, it doesn't really run the test. It records all the operations that we want to do. And when the test ends, then basically Cypress takes over and says, okay, now I know what to do. Let's start doing it. And now Cypress controls what commands are running, and it can do it in an asynchronous way and wait and do whatever, or access the DOM synchronously and do it very, very fast. It's up to Cypress to do it in the best way possible. So it's a really weird execution model. And that means that you can't do something like this, which you can do in Selenium. You get the element, and if the element text is something, you do something, otherwise you do something else. You can't do that in Cypress because it's not really running the test, it's just recording the commands. But what if you want to do something like that? And the answer is it's possible. You do a sci.get, and then you tell it what to do when that sci.get happens. You get the element, and you can do whatever you want with that element using this syntax here, when you're using this promise-like syntax. So conditional command, conditional code is not possible using the regular way, but it is possible using the Cypress way. It's not really a big thing because of a problem, because mostly tests are like serial, but if you need to do that, there is a way. Do I like this weird way? I'm not sure. I have my doubts, but you know, it's up to you. Okay. You can like it, you cannot like it. It works. There's no problems, real problems with it. But one big problem that Cypress has, maybe the hugest problem, and something that stops people from using it, is that if your app has iframes and pop-ups, and those iframes and pop-ups are in a different domain than your regular iframes and pop-ups, or well, actually any iframe and pop-up that you have, then Cypress can't handle that. Not very well. There are workarounds, but they're not very nice. Okay, so if you need to go into the iframe and like do a sci.get inside the iframe and click, forget about it. There are hacks, but you don't really want to do that. So if your application has iframes or pop-ups, please check that everything works before you decide on Cypress. That is an important caveat. And why is this? Well, remember that your code is running in the browser. It's running basically in the same window as your application. Okay, so if suddenly it needs to access another iframe, especially if that iframe is in another domain, then it can't. There's a problem there. Okay, so fast access to the DOM. And access to the DOM also enables cool developer stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But it's interesting, and the idea is this: sometimes, let's say you want to do a login, okay, so you want to do it on every test, so you need to go navigate to the login page and then enter the username, enter the password, click enter, and all that. But you can do something else. If the developer exposes the Redux store, the internals to the test, then the test can, because it has access to the DOM, can immediately go to that store and dispatch an action and do the login without any UI. And that's the difference between like 1 millisecond and 100 milliseconds, or even half a second to do a login. It also supports mocking. Mocking objects like time and date and whatever, and even the more important thing is mocking the HTTP server. So you can basically write a whole front-end testing app without having the server present, and that is fabulous. Both Selenium and Cypress support visual testing. Visual testing is where you actually, visual testing using Cypress, like bare, doesn't really work. There are problems with viewports. Taking a screenshot only takes a screenshot of the viewport. You can't take a screenshot of the whole page and blah, 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 blah. Don't try it at home. There are open source solutions. Feel free to try them. I've tried them because I really wanted to do, when I did this talk, I really wanted to do a demo like showing open source versus Applitools, and I gave up. So Visual testing. Let's talk about visual testing using Applitools. And in this case, what I want to show is not a functional test. It's not a test where I show that a button works, that the toggle works or whatever, but I want to check that how the application works, how the application looks like is what it should look like. So let's talk about that. Let's see a demo. Okay, there we go. So let's look at the code. Let's make it bigger. Okay, so I visit the to-do MVC app. I create a new to-do as usual, and then I take a screenshot of the new to-do. And then I toggle. I click on the toggle to make it strike through, and then I take a screenshot just to make sure that the strike through works, etc., etc. I do other screenshots. So that's basically the test. Let's run it using Cypress. Okay, so what we're seeing here, look at the test. It's running very, very quickly, but you'll see that in the end, it's still waiting. It's waiting on the eyes.close. And why is that? Once we ran the test, every time it found a check window, it doesn't take a screenshot. It basically takes what we call a DOM snapshot. It takes all the HTML, all the CSS, just like Cypress does, all the images, PNGs, fonts, etc., uploads them to the Applitools ultra-fast grid, and there we take a screenshot in whatever Chrome browser and resolution you want. So let's look at the result here. There we go. We have 3 screenshots, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, this is the new to-do. This is the new to-do with strike through, and this is the new to-do clear with no to-dos in it. 3 screenshots in 30 seconds, which is great, but we want more. Okay, we definitely want more, and the more we want, because in this modern world, we don't do Chrome anymore only. We have Firefox, we have Safari, we have IE, unfortunately, we have the new Edge, the old Edge, etc., etc., etc. And unfortunately, Cypress doesn't support all those. Cypress supports only Chrome, and in beta, we have Firefox. Not only that, taking a screenshot in 1024 in these modern days is not enough. We need to test it on this width, on this width, on 768, on 1280, on iPad, on iPhone, etc., etc., etc. So the Applitools ultra-fast grid enables us to do that, like with a click, with just specifying which browsers we want. We want the Chrome browsers and in these widths, and we want Firefox browsers on these widths. We can do Safari, IE, whatever you want. We have that support. Let's see the test running. Oh, it's already running. Remember that the test before ran in 29 seconds. Let's see how long this will take to run. Remember, we ran the test on 1, 2, 3. The previous test was on 1 browser. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we have 10 browsers, 27 seconds, basically the same amount of time for 10 times as many screenshots you checked with the Applitools. Let's see the result. Okay, there we go. We have Chrome 85, Firefox, etc., etc., in various desktop widths. Just to prove, this is 320. You can see it's very narrow. This is 768. You can see it's wider, etc., etc. Because we're taking a DOM snapshot and not a screenshot, we're uploading it to the grid, to the Applitools ultra-fast grid. Then we can take all these screenshots in parallel, which is why it doesn't really matter if you're doing one browser, one resolution, screen resolution, or 10 browsers, 10 screen resolutions. Okay. Okay, which do you choose? Selenium, cross-browser, only Chrome. We've seen the differences, and we've seen that the differences is because of the mindset. Selenium is a tester mindset. Cypress is more of a front-end developer mindset. That doesn't mean that front-end developers don't use Selenium or that Cypress isn't used by testers. Both are true, but the origins, the target audience, the mindset basically defines the feature set and how they are used. So how do you choose? Do you have to do cross-browser testing? And I think today the answer is no, not really. I mean, unless you're doing IE and then you have to do cross-browser testing, all the browsers today have converged, no problem. IE, I mean, Firefox, Safari, and Chrome are definitely similar and the same. So the chance of there being a functional bug is very, very slim, and I think it's worth it just not doing cross-browser, and if there is a cross-browser bug, fixing it like ad hoc. But visually, these browsers are different. So is visual cross-browser testing enough? Go with Cypress. Cypress is a great tool. Use the Applitools Visual Grid or whatever solution you want for visual testing. If not, go with, if you have to do cross-browser testing, go with Selenium. Don't think about Cypress. Are you running hundreds of tests? Go with Selenium Grid, or use the Cypress commercial offer that enables you to run hundreds of tests in a grid of their own. You're not running hundreds of tests? Good, go with Cypress. Are you a tester? You're not a tester? Go with Cypress unless you know the decision tree already get you to choose. Yes, I don't know. Try Cypress. I know a lot of testers that swear by Cypress. My Cypress introductory course in test automation U is very, very popular. Try Cypress. Maybe you like it. I love it. I like Selenium too. I love both of them, but your choice. And that's the whole point of this talk. So thank you very much.
Okay, so two things before we move to Q&A. I just wanted to let you all know that if you are interested in Cypress and you enjoyed Gil's talk, then we also have a webinar happening on September 24th at 3 p.m. British Summer Time. I put the link up in the chat room, so the link to register. And while I bring in Ashley to say hi to you all, Gil, do you want to say a few words about this webinar, about what you're going to show there with Gleb, VP of Engineering at Cypress IO?
Yes, Cypress has this new functionality that enables them, again, front-end developer mindset, enables them to test separate components in a unit test if you want. I think it's a really exciting way of testing, like unit testing components, and we want to show our capabilities in that area for visually testing components. So we've combined forces. Gleb is a great speaker. I love him, and he's a very smart man. So come hear about component testing, UI component testing, functional and visual.
Great. So while I hope he's I hope that his audio will kick in soon, but we'll take a first question up until that happens. So first of all, we're getting a lot of comments about WebDriver IO. So I'll just read some of them out to you. What do you think about WebDriver IO? It's Selenium, but has a much cleaner syntax like Cypress. And you don't need to do async await because there's sync npm module. Another person said, my team is using WebDriver IO in JavaScript, and Chrome is the main browser. Would you recommend that we change to Cypress? And if so, what would be a good reason for us to change to it? So if you want to take that, as a topic to talk about.
Okay, WebDriver IO. It's great. I know one of the people there, Kevin Lamping. It's a great product. Let's start by first understanding WebDriver IO. Underneath the hood uses the Selenium WebDriver protocol. That is why it's so cross-browser and everything. It's just a different API than Selenium WebDriver for JavaScript. It's a different API for JavaScript developers, and from what I've heard from you and from a lot of others, it's a nicer syntax. It's not using async await, that's true. I'm not a huge fan because when it's not doing async await, it's doing some kind of magic in JavaScript, possibly the same magic that Cypress is doing for async, or doing the record and play thing. Not exactly sure. I've never used WebDriver. I'm not a huge fan of magic of that kind, but if it works for you, it works for you. Should you switch from WebDriver IO to Cypress? Please, if WebDriver IO works for you, I have this saying: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I would recommend take like one test, login page or whatever, like 3 from the 100-line test, 20-line test. Move it to Cypress, play around, see if you like it. If it's like okay, then please go back to WebDriver IO. WebDriver IO is great. Okay, but if you like Cypress, I don't know, think about moving. I mean, there's no one answer. It's a style thing, it's a use case thing, it's a need thing, everything. It's your choice. Both are great. That's it.
Okay, next question. I started using Cypress following tutorials I found on the internet, but I've noticed there are some things in which Selenium has a lot of advantages. For example, support for native browser events. Do you know if Cypress will have those in the future?
They're talking about it. Not sure how they're going to do that. Native browser events. When Cypress clicks on when you tell Cypress to click on it, it does the click from the DOM. That is not native. That is not as if the user does that. And in some cases, rare cases, but that happens, it's different. Some things you can't click on if they're not native. They're talking about adding that as an option. I don't know whether they've done it yet. I think they haven't. They're definitely talking about it. More than that, I don't know. If you need native events and clicks, and I should add that to my talk. Thank you. Then yeah, as of yet, I think Cypress is not for you.
Now I was on mute, so I'm sorry. Next question. In your opinion, is JavaScript going to be a leading programming language for front-end automation testing in 2020?
Yes. Angie has this great talk where she talks about as Applitools has a lot of SDKs and its audience is testers, so we know how much people use our SDKs because of the number of downloads, and JavaScript is rising very high, and I think it's number 2 after Java. It still has a way to go, but it's definitely there. It is not going away, and the reason is very simple. A lot of automation testers automate the UI. And UI is front-end developers, and front-end developers, as we saw, is JavaScript. And sometimes the synergy between testers and front-end developers is very, very big. And the ability to speak in a common language enables you to do things together that if you do Java, then that won't work as good. I mean, a lot of, I've seen places where front-end developers were like forced to use Java, and they basically don't. You can't force them. So yes, and I'm a JavaScript fanboy. I've used everything and I love everything, but today JavaScript is my go-to language. It's a wonderful language. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Yep.
I use page object model for Selenium for code reuse and maintainability. In Cypress, can you do similar things?
Yes. Cypress is JavaScript, and JavaScript has modules, and JavaScript even has classes. So you can do the same thing. And if you follow my Cypress tutorial in Test Automation U, I show 2 ways of doing page objects in JavaScript because that concept is so important. definitely, Cypress supports it, JavaScript supports it, no problem.
During the presentation, I saw how nice it could be to let Cypress find for you the correct selectors. Don't you think, however, that there could be a risk? Wouldn't it be better to do it manually? I don't know the pattern used to do this, but probably a human choice of the right selector is more reliable.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the selector thing where, you know, you click on it and it shows you the thing, that's definitely a demo thing. Oh, look, it's cute. It shows you the selector. Definitely a demo trick. The others, no, the interactive mode, the other things in the interactive mode, like showing you the history and the actions and how the DOM looked like during that action, that is definitely not a demo thing. It's very, very useful. But that thing, I totally agree with you. Humans should choose the selector, not an algorithm, definitely.
I have used Cypress, but had issues when you have end-to-end tests, which is cross-domain. Is there a way to resolve this?
Nope. That's exactly what I was talking about. Once you have two windows or iframes or whatever in cross domains, because Cypress, the test itself runs in the browser, it can't access the cross domain iframes. And the answer is a very simple no, you cannot. I would definitely consider switching back to, I don't know, a Selenium Test Cafe, WebDriver IO. Sorry, there's currently no solution for that. Not really. There are workarounds, but they're really ugly.
Does Cypress support XPath?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. Look in the API. It's sci.get. If there was any place where it would be supported, it's sci.get. But theoretically, if you really, really need it, you do have access to the window. And if you have access to the window, you have access to the document. If you have access to the document, then you can do a get XPath or whatever API you can use. So theoretically, if you really, really need it, use XPath. But I don't remember if it's native or not.
Okay, so someone from our audience actually just wrote in the chat that yes, it does support XPath.
Thank you. I learned something today. Thank you.
Last question. We talked about Selenium versus Cypress, and WebDriver IO versus Cypress, and how about Protractor versus Cypress?
Okay, Protractor is again a Selenium. It's Selenium WebDriver. It's even more Selenium WebDriver than WebDriver IO. WebDriver IO is a different API above the Selenium protocol. Protractor is the same API with tweaks. So I don't see any difference between, from my point of view, I don't see any difference between Selenium WebDriver and Protractor in all the things I say. You can take all the talk I gave and change the word Selenium WebDriver to Protractor, and it will all be true.
Okay, so we're 3 minutes to the top of the hour, and we have Ashley here with us. But before I will let Ashley say what he wants to say, I just wanna say two thanks. First of all, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. And that's before I let Ashley and Gil say their goodbyes and whatever they need to say and want to say. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Gil, for this in-depth presentation. So 2 reminders. We have Gil's Cypress course on test automation U. Be sure to check it out if you're into Cypress. The link to register to Gil Cypress webinar with Gleb Bakhmutov, the VP Engineering of Cypress IO, is coming up on September 24th. So be sure to sign up for that as well. If that, again, a topic that interests you. And of course, Ashley will share with you a link to the recording of this session when it's available online. So that is it for me. Ashley, if you want to take it away, please do.
Yeah, thank you very much, Addy. Thanks for taking over as well, just with obviously the problems we've had there with the mic working from my side. But no, thanks for taking over with the hosting. Again, yeah, just joining in at the end here, just say thank you everybody that's obviously logged in tonight. What I will do is get the recording out to you once that's ready on email. I'll send over the slides as well, and get out those details for you for Gil's talk coming up. I can see the link in the chat there, but I'll reshare that with everybody so you can sign up if you would like to. Again, Gil, thank you very much for your time this evening. Really good talk there with us. Obviously, I'll share the recording with yourself, and any feedback that I get from my side, I'll share with you as well. But no, thank you very much, guys, for tonight. I look forward to sharing the details with everybody soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Hopefully next time in London.